Stephanie Stitches here. Welcome to my channel where together we sew. If you're new to my channel, thanks so much for coming by, and if you've been here before, thank you so much for returning. You guys know how much I love you and that you keep coming back, so that's much appreciated. This week I'm working on my pride quilt. We're working on block number 2, which you can see the block behind me hanging on the wall. This week it's a star block, and you're going to need to make 5 of these. It's a lot of half square triangles, but I promise after you get through making the half square triangles, the block sews together really quickly. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'll show you how quickly this block comes together. Okay, so we're ready to sew week 2's blocks, and you're going to need to grab your cut fabrics for this week, which are the 20 4.5-inch squares, which those for right now you can take and set aside. You're going to need your blue floral, your red floral, and your background 5.5-inch squares. So this week we're making a whole bunch of half square triangles. So we're going to start by doing that. You should have 10 of the blue floral, 20 of the red floral, and 30 of the background squares, all 5.5 inches. So we're going to start by drawing a line on the back of the background squares. You want to do that for all 30 of them. So just grab your favorite marking pen. I like a friction pen. And don't forget, you're going to cut on this line later on, so it doesn't much matter what kind of marking instrument you are using. You don't have to worry about anything showing. So okay, so I've got these marked. Now I suggest for this week that you might want to chain piece all of these. I've done most of them ahead of time, so I'm just going to show you one of each color, but it definitely goes a lot faster if you chain piece them all at the same time. And I'm actually going to do that even with these two, just to show you what I'm talking about, in case you don't know what chain piecing is, although I suspect most people do. Put this guy aside. So I'm going to sew to the right and to the left of the center line so we can get 2 half square triangles out of one piece. And as always, I allow in my patterns for you to trim down, so you don't have to worry that your half square triangles will end up being too small. So I write a lot of my patterns for beginners, so I like to make sure there's enough room in case you don't have the perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance yet. That can take a while to get as a beginner. Especially if you've done any sewing before, like garment sewing, and you're used to like that 3/8 or 5/8 inch seam allowance. So, okay, I'm going to flip these around and do the other side. I'm going to cut them apart. So now that I've got these sewn together, I'm going to grab my ruler and my rotary cutter, and I'm going to cut these apart right on that line. And we are making quite a few half square triangles today, so sure you've got your iron ready, and if you all use the Acorn Easy Press, which we call magic juice around here, solution, I would have that ready too, because that's going to be very helpful for making sure these are the right size. So now I'm going to press all these towards the darker fabric, so away from the background fabric. So you guys know I like my acorn, so I'm going to put this on all the seams first, and then go over here and press these. Now, like I said, this is just one of each color because I've already chain pieced all the rest of them together. This part of this block this week, well, you're making 5 blocks this week. So I'm going to show you how to do one, and then you'll have to do the other 4 on your own, but make 5 all together. This is it's not hard, but the longest part of this block is making all the half square triangles. After all your half square triangles are together, this block is going to go together easy peasy, very quickly. But the half square triangles can be tedious. And I know that a lot of you didn't have your fabrics cut last week, so that's why I started with the other block. Because this one, you needed to have all these fabrics cut. So hopefully you all got that done, and you can just start sewing today. I'm just ironing these all towards the colored fabric if they will behave. This one wants to come out. Okay. So they're all trimmed up, or they're all ironed up, I mean. Now we're going to trim all these guys to 4.5 inches square. We started off with a 5.5 inch square, and now we're going to trim them down to 4.5 inches. And you're going to do that for all of these. So, you got your work cut out for you. I know it's quite a bit of half square triangles, but don't forget this is a beginner pattern, so it's a skill builder. And you'll see, and I'll explain as we're putting the block together, why I chose to do it as half square triangles instead of other shapes. Because there's definitely another way to make this block. And if you are a more advanced person and you haven't cut your fabric yet and you can figure out how to do that, I'll tell you that, I'll tell you sort of the other way to make this. But this was the more beginner friendly way to make this block. So that's what I decided to do. Because like I said, we have a lot of beginners watching us, and this is a very beginner quilt. So other than all the cutting, I wanted to make this as easy as possible so everybody could finish it and have a red, white, and blue quilt for the holidays coming up. I can't believe that it's already May. Can you guys? Like, I don't know where April went. It's just crazy that May is already here. We haven't seen a whole lot of spring-like weather yet, so it does not feel like May is here already. But that's alright, we'll get there. So I'm just trimming all these down to 4.5 inches. I like to use a little bit bigger of a ruler for a couple reasons. I feel like it's easier to hold when I have more space and less chance that I'm going to cut myself. And but if you've got a 4.5 inch ruler and you want to use that, that works too. I just like having more space to hold on to. Plus it is a little bit more difficult to cut on camera where y'all can see, so it makes it easier if I have a little bit bigger of a ruler. And I like these Creative Grids ruler because they have this black diagonal line, which most rulers do, have some sort of lines, but I like them because you can just lay them right on the seam and know exactly where to cut to get nice looking squares. Okay, so those are done. So for each pair of fabric, so each red and white and each blue and white, you'll yield 2 half square triangles, and you'll trim these down to 4.5 again, which is what I just did. So now we're done with that, and put that aside for a minute. We're going to build these blocks. So for each block, you're going to need 4 of the 4.5-inch squares. You're going to need 4 of the blue and white half square triangles, and you're going to need 8 of the red and white half square triangles. So hopefully, I'm going to move my iron so I have more room to lay this out. Hopefully you guys will be able to see all of this. So the blue is going to be the center. And after I lay all this out, I'll explain, and you probably, if you're a seasoned quilter, can already see it, the different way that you could do this. So this little white 4.5-inch square is going to be the corners. And these are going to be the star legs. Upside down star leg. Okay, so there's our block. Beautiful star. You guys know how much I love stars. Okay, so if you're a more advanced quilter, yes, you can do the center as a square and a square and not have to cut so many half square triangles, and you can do the star legs as flying geese. I chose not to do that, and I know somebody's going to ask, so I decided to go ahead and address it. I chose not to do that because, like I said, this is very beginner friendly, and I feel like the half square triangles as opposed to flying geese and the half square triangles in the center as opposed to the square and square come out straighter and more precise. I know that when I was a beginner, the first time I did a flying geese block or the first time I did a square and a square, I was very frustrated because until you get that perfect quarter inch seam allowance and you learn the stitch and flip method and you're able to keep your blocks nice and square even doing those things, a square and a square can get a little wonky, and so can flying geese. So if you're more advanced and you want to figure out the math to do the square and the square and the flying geese and you haven't cut your fabric yet, feel free. But I did it this way because, like I said, we have a lot of beginners, and I feel like this way comes out a lot more precise. Is it probably faster to do flying geese and square? Sure, because you're not cutting and squaring up or sewing and squaring up so many half square triangles, but this way makes everything come out much more precise for a beginner. So that's that. So I'm gonna start to sew this, and I'm gonna sew the top row to the right, the second row to the left, the third row to the right again, and the bottom row to the left. So that way when we put all these rows together, they nest really, really nicely. So I'm gonna go ahead and start sewing these. there's my star block for the week. Don't forget you need to make 5 of these all together. We made this one together, so you need to make 4 more. Came out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. So you should have hourglass blocks and star blocks. Now, these should be the same size. So if you can see, I laid mine on top of, and they match. Now I did get a few questions about how to trim these up if you didn't have a bigger ruler as I did. So I told a few ladies that I would show you today what you can do if you don't have a big ruler, which I know a lot of people don't have the big square like I did to square this up. You can actually iron this, fold this, iron it in half right on the center, and then fold it the other direction and iron it in half right on the center, and then find the center of this block, which should be easy because everything intersects. Lay it on top of your hourglass block, and then take your ruler and trim all the way around the outside of this block. Don't cut any of this fabric off. Just trim your half square triangle or your hourglass block down using this block. Because once you've trimmed all your half square triangles to 4.5 inches, there's no more trimming on this block. So this block is the size that you want all of your blocks to be. So just lay that on top of your hourglass block, and then you can use your regular rectangular ruler, put it right on the edge of your sewn star block, and then trim off the excess of your hourglass block. As long as all you're doing is trimming off along the edges, you're not taking anything away from the center, these will still work in your quilt. So you can cut off some of the edges of this and this block will still look like it's supposed to look. Do not trim your star blocks. If you trim some of this off, you're going to lose your points. Your star legs are going to get shorter, so they're going to look a little wonky. So make sure if you're trimming this way, don't trim anything off this block. Just lay it on top of your hourglass block and trim your hourglass block down to a smaller size. So there you have it. Okay, so that is the block for this week, the star block. Thanks for sewing along with me, and don't forget you need to make 5 of these, so you have a week to make 5 of them. And then next week we're gonna put this top all together. This was a quick and easy sew, and next week is already the finishing, so you'll be able to get this done, get it quilted, and ready for Memorial Day. So I hope you enjoyed, and have a great day. Thanks so much, guys. Bye.